Welcome in, everyone, to Beyond the Beat with 32 beat writers. My name is Zach Hyduk, and today I am here with Alec Lewis. Alec is a beat writer covering the Vikings for The Athletic. You can also listen to him on his brand new podcast. I believe there's 3 episodes in, called The Alec Lewis Show. If you're looking for him on Twitter, or X as it is now called, you can find him at Alec_Lewis. Alec, welcome into the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zach. I appreciate it. I was telling you before we came on, I appreciate what you guys do. I see the account pop up every now and then. I'll be scorching out at the practice fields in Eagan, Minnesota, and I'll see the little notification pop up, and I always kind of smile a little bit. But no, we appreciate it. I think those of us who love it as much as we do and love doing the work as much as we do, we appreciate when somebody takes notice. But it's we had an off day today, so I was half recovering and then half working on 17,000 million big feature stories that I'm working on. So it's never stops. But it's I mean, I watch football for a living. How bad is that?
Yeah. No, I am jealous of you guys who get to be out there and, watching all this stuff, and even, what you can or cannot say, but you get to see it and kind of digest it, which is awesome. And you spoke about your feature pieces here. I'll just mention at the top, I haven't gotten to read this one yet. I did read some of your other work recently, like the summaries that you had on the first week of training camp so far. But if people are interested, they should check out the piece you just did on JJ McCarthy. I mean, you got to talk to like his parents and visit his hometown and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, it was like a couple weekends ago. I had to go to Chicago, or I didn't have to. I was going to Chicago to see some buddies. And while I was there, JJ McCarthy grew up about 15 miles from the city in LaGrange Park. So I was like, you know what? I had messaged with his dad before. I wanted to kind of give them some space after the draft and not really bombard them, just because I felt like they deserved that time to kind of enjoy it and be normal. And so ended up sending his dad a text. I was like, hey, I'm going to be in and around. Would love to kind of meet up. I didn't know, like, if his dad would be like, hey, I thought he might say no. I thought he might say, we'll do it later. Maybe we'll do it in Minnesota. I thought maybe he'd say, sure, let's meet at Starbucks or Portillo's, to use a Chicago place. Like, I wasn't really sure. And then all I got in response was like, yeah, let's do it. And he just sent me their address. And I pull up, and I didn't really know, like, I didn't really know if it was going to be his house or like a random coffee shop. Like, I wasn't sure. And I pulled up, it was their house, and just spent time kind of in their screened in backyard. And the whole story was essentially like, you always hear with these high profile athletes, how a lot of them, just their parents are so overbearing. And it was like my impression, just spending 2 hours with the McCarthy parents, it was like, they just appreciate that their son loves it as much as he does, and they've supported him in that regard. So it was a really fun story to do. I always, like, the people who know my writing know that, like, I'm always trying to place people in the scene. I love, like, fiction writing. I love novels, and I love just the stories that make me feel like I'm there. So that is always kind of my approach, and it leads sometimes to overwriting, which my editors can probably want to scream at me about sometimes, but it comes out of a place of my heart wanting to do great stuff. So that was a fun piece. I've has something tomorrow on Vikings rookie kicker Will Reichard, and it's kind of another human kind of look at a guy who is he has the scoring record in college football for the amount of points he scored, and people in Alabama know what he meant to that kicking program. So it should be pretty cool story, and worked hard on it. Excited for people to read it.
Yeah, so guys, make sure to check both of those out, those 2 pieces on those 2 rookies, JJ McCarthy, who we'll talk about shortly, and then obviously the kicker situation up there as well. So we'll just move right in, I guess, to the thing that probably most people are interested about, I suppose, and that is the quarterback situation there up in Minnesota. I mean, you make a really big decision to move on from Kirk Cousins. Kind of felt like that was in the cards, and everybody knew it going into last year, right? Obviously, he gets injured and he's down with the Falcons now, and that ship has sailed. And they're hoping that JJ McCarthy, rookie taken 10th overall out of Michigan, is able to take them a little bit higher, possibly, than Kirk was able to do, which, as you know, frustrating as that situation may have been at times, I mean, let's be real, Kirk Cousins is a very good NFL quarterback, and those are some pretty big shoes to fill. So how is that looking so far? Because we've had, as far as I'm aware, there haven't been any, or many at least, first team reps for JJ McCarthy. And the quote from Kevin was that, he Darnold was going to get those first. So what is that quarterback battle looking like, or is there even a battle?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it a battle right now. And I know, like, it's funny because people here locally are really like, they want it to rare. I mean, JJ McCarthy has performed really well, and I'll get into this a little bit in a second. But people want it to be this locked in competition, back and forth, mano a mano, Darnold McCarthy. But I mean, it's just not. Right now, it would be a mischaracterization to qualify what we've seen as that. To your point, JJ McCarthy has not thrown the ball with the ones. He's mostly been throwing to like your Jalen Nailors, your Brandon Powells with the second team offensive line, and that's mostly what he's been confined to. On the practice field. But I would say this. So, like, if you go back to when they made this decision to draft a quarterback, Kevin O'Connell is a guy who has had a ton of experience, both in the private sector developing quarterbacks and in his early time in the NFL. He worked with Johnny Manziel. He worked with Dwayne Haskins. And both of those players were kind of thrust into action probably earlier than they should have been. And so Kevin, from the outset, Kevin O'Connell, has wanted to take a long-term view with this thing. Like, we do not want to rush JJ McCarthy. We want him to develop on his time, learn the system, learn the verbiage, master the footwork that is required in this system. And then ultimately, if he is ready, if the teammates in the locker room believe he's the guy, then at that point he will become the starter. And it's part of the reason they signed Sam Darnold to the 1-year, $10 million deal, because they felt like Sam was capable enough with upside to keep this team and this offense afloat with the skill players they have. So, I mean, they entered training camp wanting Sam Darnold to take most of the 1 reps. He has so far. JJ has, they've both looked really good at times. They've both struggled at times, but I think JJ's looked better than I expected. And I think we'll just see. Like, I expect Cleveland, the joint practices in a couple weeks, really give us an indication about where those two guys are. I've said it publicly already. The hurdle for JJ, to me, is not velocity. It's not throwing mechanics. It's not being able to make the throws. It's learning the complexities of an NFL offense and NFL defenses and being able to kind of master the game plan, weekly kind of preparation that goes into it. Do I expect him to be able to do that? 100%. Like, his aptitude is off the charts. But do I expect him to be doing that in week 1, week 2, week 3? I would say at this point that would be probably overshooting it right now.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So, what do you think they're looking for? Are there any like hard markers that we can be keeping an eye out for as we work through? Because it sounds like you don't expect him to start for the first maybe quarter of the season, even. So, what are they looking to see once we get into the season? What can he actually do to show them, like, hey, you know what, Sam, thanks for what you've done here, but we're going to give JJ the reins now?
I mean, I think the answer is not some strict, like, well, he threw 20 passes in practice and they were all accurate, and so now he's starting. It's more of like, I guess, just vibes. Like, from what I know, they want it to be a situation where internally the front office, the coaching staff, the teammates in the locker room, the offensive line, the fan base is all raring, chopping at the bit, because they know JJ gives them the best chance to win. And until it hits that point, I don't expect Kevin O'Connell to really make that decision. Now, I mean, you said quarter of the season. I mean, maybe by the end of training camp, the teammates are like, you know what, Kevin, like, if we want to win this year and we want to beat a lot of these incredible teams that they play, especially early in the schedule, we need JJ to be our starter. If that's the situation coming out of training camp, then who knows what's going to happen. But I just think with the way they've talked about this, going back to the time they drafted him, they want to take a long-term view. And I give him credit for it, because in this league, everything is so geared to the short term. You struggle on Sunday and you're the worst. You win on Sunday, you're the best. You fly as high as possible, you fall as low as possible. That's just this league. And there's a lot of ego involved. So to take an approach of wanting to maximize a guy's long-term ability as an investment, to me, it's something that should be admired. And it's an approach that I think will probably lead to as much possible success in the long run. That's my opinion, and that's the way they've approached it. And I think it is the smart route.
Yeah, I do think ultimately that's wise in my own personal opinion as well. But yeah, I mean, everybody's always itching to see that first round pick, and he's going to get in at some point. But you mentioned like that schedule. I mean, they play New York Giants week 1, but then you got San Francisco, Houston, Green Bay. Then you get the Jets with hopefully healthy Aaron Rodgers, Detroit, Los Angeles, even Indianapolis, and then Jacksonville. Like, those two aren't easy games. Like, they've got a pretty tough schedule. So maybe you want Sam Darnold to take those slings and arrows at the beginning anyways, so.
Well, I've also said, and I've written this, I wrote this months ago. It's like, there is a possibility that the long-term plan with JJ McCarthy hinges very largely on Sam Darnold and how he performs early in the season. The better he performs, the more I think the quieter the noise will be from the people in the locker room, from the fans, from other ancillary figures around the organization. Like, if Sam's performing well, if he's finding Justin Jefferson all over the field, if they're running the football effectively with Aaron Jones, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point, then it gives you kind of more of a runway, if you're Kevin O'Connell, to just kind of ease into it and allow JJ McCarthy to learn, and to me, and this kind of it's such a weird kind of poetic thing of like, here is this young guy who is being maximized from a developmental standpoint. And some of that hinges on an older guy in Sam Darnold, who was so wrongfully maximized in his development in New York and Carolina. So it's a weird, maybe not weird, but it's like a fascinating little layer of it to me. And maybe I'm just a nerd and have thought about it way too much, but I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, I think that all definitely plays into it. And you mentioned some of the surrounding characters, and yeah, if I'm Sam Darnold, I'm just looking to Justin Jefferson every play, throwing it up, and if he makes me right, then that's what I'm gonna do. But we'll stick with the new additions for just a moment, and we'll go dive into Aaron Jones. They brought him in from Green Bay. I was a little bit surprised that Green Bay did move on from him. I know kind of why they did, but at the same token, I feel like he has quite a bit of juice. He's not a guy that you give the ball to every single play, but he's very productive and very good at what he does. They're bringing him in to either support Darnold in the meantime or eventually help out the rookie in McCarthy. Sounds like a very sound decision. What has he looked like so far in camp? How do you feel like he's integrating into the new team, rival in the division there? And what does that backfield look like, and how does that shake out for the rest of the season?
Yeah, Aaron's looked phenomenal, and you don't have to take it from me. One of my a good dude in the locker room I talk to often is Christian Darrisaw, the Vikings left tackle, who just got paid a lot of money, and he was kind of walking off the field the other day, and we were chatting a little bit, and he's like, "This guy Aaron Jones is just different, man. Like, you could tell how excited he was to hopefully probably run block more than they have in the past couple of years. Like, I think around here, one of the narratives I would say is that Kevin O'Connell hasn't wanted to run the ball. They haven't run the ball effectively, and they haven't. I mean, in 2022, they led the league in percentage of 0 or negative runs, and that was with Dalvin Cook. And then last year with Alexander Mattison, ton of turnovers, just not a ton of production. And so the idea for them was, if they could find an impact player at the position to pair with Ty Chandler, who they really like, then they would feel really comfortable with it. And it's funny, you said you were kind of surprised. Like, the day I literally remember where I was, which is weird probably, that the day that the Packers were like, we're going to cut Aaron Jones, I texted Matt Schneidman, who covers the Packers for us at The Athletic, and I was like, is this serious? Because I felt like watching Aaron Jones in the playoffs, he was, I mean, just an incredible exponential value for their offense in general, and important in the development and ascent of Jordan Love. And he ran for 100 yards in 2 of those games. And so when I found that out, I was like, man. And then hours later, you hear some whispers from internally inside the Vikings building. You're like, they're kind of interested. I'm like, I mean, I hope they're interested. They want their running game to be better. And this guy, when he is healthy, it can be really effective. So I mean, I really think that's the important aspect of this. Can Aaron Jones, a guy who's been as injured as he has in years past, stay healthy? And if he can, I expect him to obviously get the bulk of the work. I expect him to catch passes out of the backfield. He'll be big in pass protection, but I also, like I mentioned, Ty Chandler for a reason. They really appreciated just what he did from, I believe, week 14 when he ran for more than 100 yards against Cincinnati last year on. He really took a step. Internally, they knew it. I mean, there were players in the locker room telling me early last year, like, we got to get Ty Chandler on the field. They believed in him, but it took a little bit, and ultimately he did perform. I don't know what the split will look like. Like, maybe it's 70-30, maybe it's 65-35. I don't really know. Maybe it's 80-20, and maybe it's even more than that. But I think that they feel so confident in Ty Chandler, confident enough that they probably believe using Ty keeps Aaron fresh for the long haul of the season and might keep him more healthy. But that room, just watching them on the field through 10 practices, is dynamic in a way that it has not been since I got here in 2022.
Yeah. I mean, he, like you mentioned, he adds a whole lot. He can run it, he can catch it, and he can help in that pass protection, which, as we know, is super important. All three of those, especially for a rookie quarterback. So I'm excited to see it, and yeah, surprised that he was free enough, and glad that they were able to snag him. The wide receiver room. I mean, I feel like we know Justin Jefferson is going to do what he's going to do.
Good player.
We can talk about him. Yeah, good player. Is anything changed at all with him?
No, nope. Nope. The only thing that's changed is every day he shows up in a different pair of Oakley glasses that, to steal from someone else at training camp and other media members, like, I think every pair of his glasses are probably more expensive than my car. And that's, I'd probably reiterate that. But when you perform the way he does, and I mean, you can wear whatever pair of glasses probably you can fathom. So no, he is the primary target on it, almost every pass play they have. He and Kevin O'Connell are in lockstep with the offensive plan. As long as he stays healthy, with the way he was trending last year before he got hurt, and the year before, I believe he had maybe 120 catches or something, 1,800 yards. Like, I mean, the sky is probably the limit for what he can accomplish this year.
Yeah, getting $110 million guaranteed gives you a lot of leeway for that, glasses budget. So we'll be interested to track that as we go. But the guy that, I mean, is probably the most interesting, I suppose, to talk about on this team from a wide receiver perspective has got to be Jordan Addison. And I hesitate to judge guys too much when it feels like character issues maybe come up, and I don't want to put you in a tough spot. So, answer this however you're comfortable. But like, you have a teammate die in a car accident from a drunk driver, and then a couple weeks later, you're found asleep at the wheel in the middle of a highway, a road, or whatever it was. And the year previous, in your rookie year, before you even take any snaps on the field, you're going like 160 miles an hour down the highway. So I guess my question is twofold. One, are you concerned about, or do you believe any suspensions coming from either the team or the NFL on that? And then, do we need to be concerned about this guy long term? Again, I'm totally want to give grace to people, and that people can correct themselves. So I'm not putting him, in that category for the rest of his life. But should we be worried? And what do we expect this year as far as suspension is concerned?
Yeah, suspension wise, I mean, the answer I could give you right now is I just don't know. It sounds like, listening to Kevin O'Connell, they are allowing the league to direct kind of that process, and nobody internally has given me any timetable on that. So we shall see. I know from the California State Highway Patrol, all of the information that I have is what we got from the initial news release, and there's been nothing since that. And that release stated that Jordan was arrested on suspicion of DUI. He had fallen. The officer wrote that he was found asleep at the wheel of a white Rolls Royce on the side of the highway near LAX. And to your point, Zach, coming off, I mean, this was in July, a year after last July, he was driving 140 miles an hour in a purple Lamborghini in a 65 mile an hour, I might be at a 55 mile an hour speed zone. So, yeah, I mean, look, the first day back in Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the GM, met with media members. And it was very interesting to hear their responses. They didn't, what I would say is they didn't hammer Jordan publicly. Now, privately, I think there were some very serious conversations had. Kevin O'Connell has a really good relationship with Jordan and has from the pre-draft process. And so I think there were some pretty serious conversations about decision making within that context. And then Jordan spoke the first day of camp, and he talked about decision making and needing to be better in that regard. And so, I mean, look, it's a very, like you said it exactly right. Like, character is a hard, when you're a beat writer, it is a hard thing to judge guys' character because you see guys at the practice field. Sometimes you spend time away from the field, but it's curated time. It's not the real. Like, I was jogging earlier today. I saw Byron Murphy Jr. driving in a gray Mercedes. Normal. I mean, that's like him in the real world. And you don't, that was my only exposure to that. So it's very challenging. What I would say is it's been interesting listening to Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi talk about their belief in Jordan as a person. Maybe they have to say that publicly, but I'm not sure they would be as forward about that if they didn't really believe in him in that regard. And I will also say I had a conversation on the practice field today with the dad of a high profile Vikings player. And he's like, look, like, I mean, we would not let our son away. I mean, we always had someone with them at all times, and we were very direct with how we approach it. So there's so many different factors that I think can dictate the way guys operate and not. And I think you just I hope from a human perspective, and hoping that other people aren't put in harm's way and that Jordan himself isn't put in harm's way, that ultimately, if he needs to get help or needs to go through whatever he has to go through to learn from this, that it happens. So and you're exactly right. I mean, for it to come after the tragedy that was Kyrie Jackson's death and the death of Isaiah Hazel and Anthony Lighton in Maryland, just brutal, tough situation. So we'll see. But I don't, in my role, I never feel like it's right to give some referendum of a guy's character. There's just a lot that we don't know. And I feel maybe you shouldn't say that, but that's how I feel. That's the authentic, my response is what I'd say.
No, it makes sense. I think, as a reporter, that's your job to report. It's not necessarily to always give every single opinion about every single thing. And so I respect that 100%. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I think we should be measured, but also, critical when necessary. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was just kind of the future thing. And hopefully he, uses it as an opportunity to learn from that. And maybe this is the last we hear of that. And sometimes that does happen. So we'll have to see. I think, yeah, the league, sometimes, we just don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden we do. And, until the legal process happens, I wonder if we don't hear anything at all. So,
yeah, I mean, and it's possible that it goes into the season, and then a suspension it could be levied the year at. I mean, there's probably a lot of ways it could go. And I mean, me speculating on that, I don't know. Like, if I had information, I'd give it to you. I just, on that front, I think everyone's kind of in a waiting pattern.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we'll watch for that together then. Moving on to the tight ends. This is something really interesting. I mean, you got Hawkinson, who's been pretty productive for you guys, but, he's on the PUP now. I don't actually know when he's expected back, so maybe you could give us some information on that.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't given a specific timetable for that either, and no one internally has offered that up as much as I wish they would. But I mean, I can tell you, twice in this last week, I saw him running. I mean, it was full speed. I mean, as athletic as TJ Hawkinson looks. There was one workout where he was like doing kind of hill sprints on this hill they have out near the facility. And he looked pretty good. Like he looked really athletic. And then there was another session after practice where he was doing these curved linear runs, which is kind of a method that a lot of speed and agility trainers are using these days to kind of just test kind of the lower half and work on explosiveness from a running standpoint. And he looked really, really good doing that. He's been very involved at practice, not practicing, but like out and present, which makes me think that like he feels very much a part of this. I imagine he's going to push as much as he can to probably not miss more than a few games. But I do know the Vikings are going to, he is just a really important piece for them. He's been the secondary target, even with Jordan Addison last year. Like he is a comfortable target for those guys. So they just want to take a long-term view. They extended him. So he is a focal point of what they're doing offensively. And I don't think they want to put in jeopardy the idea that he comes back too soon and then has to miss time later. But what I would say, me personally, I didn't expect him to look as good as I have seen him running the last two times this past week. Like I wasn't sure if we'd see anything like that until near the season. So things seem to be trending pretty well.
Good. That's good to hear. I mean, he got injured, I think, week 16 last year. So yeah, that's good to see him up and at him so quickly doing those drills. 95 receptions, 960 yards last year. I mean, you almost forget how productive he was. I mean, that's crazy. So that's a big spot that needs some filling there until he's back. I mean, I was looking at our lads with the depth chart. I mean, you've got Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt, Robert Tonyan, who I think had back spasms the other day. You know, we got news that the cart was coming out, and everybody's like, "Oh my goodness, it's a knee injury." Thankfully, it seems to not be that. I mean, Nick Muse, heck, N'Keal Harry is on the roster listed as a tight ends, but I feel like that's kind of a jumble. Can we sort that out at all? What roles are these guys going to have until he's back?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of Johnny Munt in training camp. That's the name I'd give you right here in terms of probably has taken the most frequent, maybe the highest number of snaps with that one group. Kevin O'Connell has liked this guy for a long time. He was with them in Los Angeles. Johnny came over Kevin's first year, 2022. I think at one point last year, I asked Kevin about Johnny Munt, and he said he's the best number 3 tight end in the NFL, which was a very classic. It was a very funny comment. Like I've joked before, like find someone who loves you like Kevin O'Connell loves Johnny Munt. It's like that level, and he really does like him. And Johnny's pretty versatile in terms of pass catching and run blocking. Josh Oliver, it's interesting. They signed him before last season, in part because I believe they thought he would really help from a run blocking perspective in terms of being able to kick out edge rushers. And you saw that frequently when he was run blocking, but he also, maybe left a little desired as a pass catcher. So maybe they could use him more in that regard. Maybe they have to get more creative because defenses are tipped when he's in the game that it's going to be a run. I think you could see some 12 personnel usage. I also think you could see a lot of 21 personnel with CJ Ham. So that those two facets, I think I would look out for. And then, I mean, you're right. The depth of the room, Robert Tonyan, we'll see. The cart was, he couldn't move. He was laying on the ground. They kind of had to lift him up, and they've heard back spasm. I checked again on that today, and it was like, it's just going to be time. We'll see what happens. So it'll be interesting to hear what the team says on that publicly. And then Nick Muse, they like. He was a draft pick in 2022. They like him. N'Keal Harry, you mentioned, but that guy, the first time I saw him at Vikings practice last year was a night practice in training camp. And I was like, who is that, an edge rusher? Oh, no, that's N'Keal Harry. So, the fact they switched him to tight end did not surprise me at all. He has that body type. And I've talked to him. He's a really pleasant guy to speak with, and he was sharp. We talked about offense. So, we'll see kind of what happens there. But I would just zero in on Johnny Munn, and then potentially, I know he's not a tight end, but CJ Ham's usage might be a way to kind of a way that they use a bigger body in the run game.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I've been with them for a little while now. As we move through training camp, I'll get this, and then I'll get your opinion on how they might perform through the season. As we work through training camp here, coming up through the preseason as well, what do you think like the most important thing to watch on this team is? No
I
pressure.
mean, Sam Darnold's play to me is very important, obviously. Besides that, I mean, maybe it's the interior of the offensive line. I mean, they brought back Garrett Bradbury at center. The left guard through training camp thus far has been Blake Brandell, who has not started for a consistent string of time here in the past. So that's going to be interesting. And then Ed Ingram at right guard struggled in his first year in 2022, but played the entire season. Performed a little better last year, but still had some up and down moments. So it's, to me, for him this year, it's kind of like make or break, take a step. And so to me, I say the interior of the offensive line because I have confidence in Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw at tackle. And also because if Sam Darnold's going to succeed, the run game probably has to be good, which the offensive line matters immensely to that. And then for Sam Darnold to be good, he probably needs to have some time. So that interior grouping and it coming together, it's hard to really evaluate right now. I go back to when they're in Cleveland in 2 weeks, and you got Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, and that crew flying at you. Will probably have a pretty good idea of how much they can withstand. But yeah, that's what I'd say, just because it ties to everything. You want to get the ball downfield to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, you probably need time. You want to run the ball with Aaron Jones, you need time. You want Sam Darnold to be able to read within the rhythm of the timing of the play over the field, you need time. And so that comes back to the offensive line. And so that's the interior. To me, they have a lot to prove. And if they can, the offense probably has that much more of a chance to be as effective with Sam Darnold as Kevin O'Connell would want.
All right, we'll have to give that a watch. Yeah, I think, pressure up the middle. I mean, everybody always talks about that with Tom Brady, but of course you need that if you're Sam Darnold or anybody else. So, okay. All right. Yeah, we'll have to keep watch over that then as we continue to work through this training camp at 7.5 wins on the season. Are you taking the over or the under?
Ooh, you put me on the spot. You didn't tell me we were going to do that.
No, I can't. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to put any money on it, but it'd be nice to know.
Right. No, I can't. I don't know. I don't believe I can do that. Man, so the people who read my stuff and listen to me in my podcast and listen to me on the radio here, like I am an internal optimist. I am Mr. Positive, Mr. Hope. I want to believe. But I might say a little bit under it, maybe like 7, because part of me, there are just a lot of ifs. If the cornerback situation can hold up defensively, if the edge rushers can create pressure without Danielle Hunter, probably going to happen, but it's an if. If a lot of players can stay healthy, if the interior offensive line can be good, if Sam Darnold's good, if the run game's better. Like, it's just, I covered baseball for a while and used to say, like, the amount of ifs in the lineup is probably the amount of skepticism you should have in what's possible. So you add those to the schedule, which we talked about at the beginning of that, where obviously you play the Giants, which, I mean, you need to win that game when you play the Texans, the 49ers, Green Bay, the Jets, like you mentioned, I mean, the Rams, the Jaguars, you've talked about it. Like a lot of these teams are. Chicago is no easy task. Detroit right now is really impressive. So when you pair the amount of ifs they have roster wise with the schedule, to me, it's hard to go over that. And I mean, we'll see. Like if Sam Darnold balls with the skill group they have, who knows? If Brian Flores does what Brian Flores does in another season, then we'll see. I mean, people will ask me, like, how do you think the defense will fare? I mean, part of me last year they were so polarized in max coverage, mass pressure. I just don't know if you can duplicate a similar strategy, especially against these quarterbacks they're facing this year, which are by and large better than the quarterbacks they faced last year. So, we'll see. But that's what I'd say right now. And if they prove me wrong, then I think they did a good job. Anywhere 8+ to me would be a solid year with just the roster construction right now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll take all that into account. And I did just notice comment from your colleague over in Washington, Ben Standig. He said that Alec rules, and I would have to agree with that. So, Ben, it's good to see you in the chat there.
Ben's the man. He's given me about 47 numbers for stories. So thank you, Ben.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I'm gonna have. I haven't asked him yet, but I actually ran into him at the Senior Bowl, and I've been embarrassed almost to message him online because it was like the most awkward. He was like talking to somebody, and we were like, I was coming out of the bathroom, and I hope he just doesn't remember it if I do get to talk to him at some point.
Here's what
I totally like dropped the ball on that one. An epic fail.
Here's what I'd say at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine. I mean, the amount of awkward conversations, like if you think yours was one, and I mean, if you've been in any of those spots at any of those times, there are moments that I'd like probably to walk back, but it's what happens when you're, I don't know, engulfed in the football.
There you go. Yeah. Well, we will get you out of here in just a second. But before we do, and I did tell you this at the top of the show, I don't know if you've had a chance to think about it a little bit. I try to give people, if we have time, an opportunity for what we call a soapbox. It'll be exactly 60 seconds about. I actually uploaded some music this time. We'll see if I picked anything decent and it actually works here. So I'll try to do my, one-man producer thing and make it happen. So when that starts, give us whatever you got. I don't know what it is yet. And when it ends, then you can be done, I guess. Sound good?
Awesome. Appreciate it, Zach. Thank you. This has been fun too. I appreciate it.
I agree. All right, go ahead.
All right. My soapbox. So you mentioned this. I'm like, I have no idea what I've got. So I was watching the Hall of Fame game tonight. We're talking Thursday, and Cam Akers was running the ball for the Texans. And so it made me think of a couple things. One, Cam Akers, I don't know if people know, he's had 2 Achilles tears and 2 different Achilles over the past 2 years. And he has returned. I think he had the most recent one in November, and it's already August, and he's already back doing spins. So but the one of my is like, it's amazing how quick some of these guys are returning from that injury, which is a brutal injury. The second thing is just like, props to Cam Akers. I think a lot has been said about this guy, but to me, the willingness to rehab from one of those, come back, start to perform with this team in Minnesota that he felt comfortable with, and then tear it again, and then now be back with another team. Like, I don't think sometimes we put enough stock into the amount of like mental fortitude that it takes to really rehab and respond from that type of injury twice in a row. I didn't really expect tonight to be shouting out Cam Akers, but like it's one of those things that really, he deserves credit for navigating that stuff and already being back on the field. It's highly impressive to me.
All right, there you go. So tonight's soapbox, don't bag on Cam Akers unless you've ripped your own Achilles and tried to get back on an NFL
twice.
Field.
2 different Achilles back to back. Crazy.
Absolutely crazy. Well, Alec, it's really been awesome to have you on. I really appreciate you joining us here. Again, before we let you go, though, let people know where we can find you and what you do.
Yeah, I do my day job covering the Minnesota Vikings for The Athletic. So a lot of writing there. Writing is hard, but I try my best. And then I just started recently a podcast called The Alec Lewis Show. Very creative. I did as much as I could brainstorming, and that's what I came up with. So props to me, I guess. But talking a lot of Vikings, having some fun guests over there. You can find that on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whatever. And then I'm on Twitter way too much at Alec_Lewis. But read The Athletic, theathletic.com. We have, our NFL coverage keeps me motivated every day by some of the quality that we've got. So appreciate you having me. It's been fun. I love talking to people who care about kind of the work we do. So it's fun.
Thanks. No, the privilege has been all mine, and I can certainly say that for everybody else on our team as well. Make sure everybody to go ahead and check Alec's work out over at The Athletic and on Twitter as well. Make sure to check out our website if you get a chance at 32beatwriters.com, where we got player training camp news, news summaries, player tracking tools, and more. Make sure you keep up there for all of the most recent and relevant information from the beat writers. For Alec Lewis, I'm Zach Hyduk, and we will see you next time.